We kind of think of Urbit as almost like your personal computer. So we think about Landscape as a OS, really. And so on Landscape, there's a bunch of different applications that we've created, such as Groups, which is kind of a decentralized Discord. We have Small Talk, which is our mobile app, and Talk, which is kind of like just DMs, really. But really, all of this came out of us at Talon after working on Urbit, just wanting tools that we owned, wanting these alternatives to just everyday collaboration and communication.
And right now, there's a hosted solution that that Talon is also offering. Can you explain sort of the background of how that came about? Was that originally planned, or can you maybe demystify Urbit a bit here?
Yeah, I mean, this has definitely always been thought about. Like even in our original founder kind of solid day, where there was your Urbit was hosted, it's not necessarily, I think, a perfect solution, but it is a solution that's going to get 99% of people on Urbit, and so it's a step in the right direction. Right? It takes a lot of time to be one of these individuals in the room. It takes a lot of education, in some cases like a lifetime, to get here. And so we think everyone should have access to to owning their own tools, and we can do that with a hosted Urbit.
And Hakwon, can you briefly explain Uqbar and how it relates to the rest of the Urbit ecosystem? Like, how does it interconnect?
Sure.
Would it be related to Landscape in any way? Like, how does that look?
In certain ways, yeah. I think the easiest way to understand it, if you're new to Urbit, is to ask yourself, what is a dApp? And there are undoubtedly as many definitions as there are people in this room, but I would say a dApp is a peer-to-peer application with on-chain access, read-write to smart contracts, blockchains, right? And it's an unfortunate reality that it's actually quite hard to build a peer-to-peer application. So many times when people talk about building dApps in the crypto community, they are imagining an on-chain function that they want their dApp to serve, but then as they begin to, they get over the honeymoon period and they start building this application, they realize, oh, this is not peer-to-peer out of the box. Building this not just as a centralized app, a centralized front end, a centralized user experience that also has formats some smart contract transactions for consumers, but if I want it to actually be peer-to-peer and decentralized, I need to build a lot of infrastructure. If I want to build a game and I want the users to be able to message them, that is a project that could take a year. If I want them to be able to share data, if I want them to be able to even do version control on this this application that they're using, and if I want them to be able to own that all themselves, the infrastructure projects there are large. People have realized this. This isn't a new insight. That's why in this year and the past year, you've seen so many specifically infrastructure and middleware projects get funding. In many ways, they're very successful, but there's also still a real friction for dApp developers, which is you need to get all of these different kinds of infrastructure tooling to work together. That involves duct tape and glue, and it ends up being fairly brittle. Anytime you change your app or they change their infrastructure, you have a problem. I don't want to name specific projects, but I just was talking to someone we're close with who does not use Urbit, and he said, there were 500 of us developing using this infrastructure as of 4 months ago, but they've changed to a new version, and none of our code works now, and there's no way to update it programmatically, and so essentially they got rug pulled by their own infrastructure, and it doesn't need to be that way. You can build a peer-to-peer application where you get to focus on the business logic of what you want the application to do, and Urbit already provides that. Urbit is the ultimate development environment for building peer-to-peer applications that allows you to take all these tools that other people have built, they plug in, they work out of the box. All that Uqbar needs to do is add the on-chain read-write access that makes the peer-to-peer app into a decentralized application.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. And I want to circle backwards before going a little bit deeper. guess how would each of you describe Urbit's ultimate end game, like in your own words, or why you started to get involved in it?
So I would say your grandmother doesn't know what Apache is, and your great-grandchildren won't know what Urbit is.
I actually just talked about this morning, but I really think the end game is just ownership of our own tools, and that allows for this extremely custom software to actually exist. We're kind of stuck in this uncanny valley of personalization in Web 2, and in order to really unlock kind of autonomy, we need to have these tools that we own. And so I think like the end game is actually a very like rich, to use the term like ecology of software and communities owning their tools.
And Marisa, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are some maybe major, or you can both of you can answer this, but just like major architectural components in the Urbit like land or ecosystem that are missing, whether that's something for landscape or other OSs or tools. Like what do you think is missing or standing in the way or slowing down like the development of these, I like to call them like autonomous ecologies? Like what's the number one thing?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just general adoption, and so especially for landscape, I mean, there's so many things that are just missing. I mean, from basic things like image hosting to currently right now, Talon has created the application or groups, which is basically like your decentralized Discord, and it's going to be a really exciting day when there's actually like third-party applications created in there, and actually like we're working with, for example, there's going to be a like Gnosis integration hopefully soon, where it would be really easy for any community to be able to just spin up a safe, and so anyway, there's a lot of the like foundation is there, but just not a lot of not all the polish and not all of the utilities are there, but we're really close.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that adoption is the key thing now, and I think that Urbit is a very technologically ambitious project, and as a result, there's been a very long R&D process, unusually long by crypto standards, where lots of projects, will have some kind of token that they launch like 6 months after they do the first pitch paper. And the idea that you would build a tool that is so complex and so valuable that you would spend 15 years, from the design stage to the actual point where you're ready to ramp up to millions of users, that's something that people, because it is a little bit foreign, maybe you could say, not just to crypto, but even to sort of the instant gratification nature of our age, that now that we're ready to pivot, like it's done. The core work is done. There are a few final things that are going to be snapped into place this year, including app permissioning, provenance, tools that will allow greater privacy in a cloud hosting setting. And those are all very important, but yeah, it's primarily at this point about outreach and bringing to people, for example, the idea that even if you don't want to write your smart contracts in Hoon, the Uqbar language, you can write the whole back end of your app, what you want the users to run locally, and accomplish that while getting, sending the final results off to your chain of choice.
Cool, thank you for explaining that. I wanted to now just go a little bit deeper on Uqbar. So it's aiming to be like I guess the question I have is it aiming to be like a true layer 2 that will always maintain Ethereum as the settlement layer, which seems to be how it's positioned right now. So that might be similar to Optimism, Arbitrum, or is its end goal to eventually become more sovereign and have its own independent settlement layer, more like, Polygon's main blockchain or Gnosis chain? Is it supposed to be like Ethereum adjacent, or long-term Ethereum as like the settlement layer?
I would say that we are, at this point, we are part of the Ethereum community, and we are building a blockchain specifically with the plan for it to remain an L2, not just in the medium term, but in the foreseeable long term. Now, we do want to think about the options for autonomy and decentralization. I know that there are a lot of different feelings in the community about what the long-term centralization risks of Ethereum might be, and we're sensitive to that. But our priority for now is having a fully functional blockchain, and at a point, some of that might involve giving users more autonomy and more confidence in Urbit execution, dApps, and smart contracts by making certain parts of the roll-up contract immutable that would then make it difficult in the future to move to an autonomous L1 in the future if we became unhappy with Ethereum governance or anything like that. However, a final choice along those lines has not been made. In fact, we only started settling to Gurley, the Ethereum testnet, about 2.5 weeks ago. So we still have time to make a final decision along those lines, but we're currently strongly aligned with ETH.
Cool. And so you're leveraging Cairo, which is a Starkware tooling for building Uqbar, but that's mainly ZK is used for scaling. This is a conference that has themes around privacy. Are there any visions on at what point that would come into the picture? Or?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question, and I think that for the fully fledged autonomous ecologies that Marissa was mentioning are essentially Urbit and Uqbar are the substrate for that, and we're talking about things like DAOs that can run themselves, the kind of things that were being alluded to in the the future entities panel, and I think that there will be things like future entities emerging on Urbit. However, our goal at this point is to free developers, to free dApp developers, and it's sort of like a barbell thesis. We think one thing that's a problem is that everyone needs to build their own peer-to-peer app infrastructure out of the box. Urbit solves that. The other thing is that compute is expensive, and scaling is very important in order to allow to free developers to do what they want in the most decentralized manner possible, instead of resorting to like old-style Web 2 solutions for reasons of convenience. So we think that even if there are, we don't have baked in the default level privacy, like ZK privacy right now, just the fact that you're able to get all of your compute off centralized servers, off computations that are owned by other people, and do it yourself on your own peer-to-peer server, that is something that we really want to race for as a production-ready MVP product. In the long run, if we're able to attain enough computational efficiency with the ZK scaling, then we can snarkify apps on top of it and achieve arbitrary levels of privacy that way. So that would be our medium-term roadmap.
Okay, I wanted to ask Marissa a question now about some privacy-related things. So with the hosted solution, is there anything that the user is sacrificing when it comes to privacy? For example, it seems like Urbit has event logs. So what data is on those event logs that Tlon, the corporation, would have access to when you're leveraging it as a hosted solution for your ship or planet or group?
Yeah, so there are event logs, and I think one thing that's really important to recognize about Urbit, right, is that it's a compute solution. So if we're running your compute for you, yes, like you are giving up a certain amount of privacy. That said, right, Tlon is specifically not aligned with a lot of how other companies end up running in databases and storing your data and mining your data. We don't really have those incentives. The other thing is, of course, you can leave at any time. So we do see a future where, yeah, some people get on via a hosted Urbit, But they decide one day that they want to try self-hosting, and they can. So
I think that something that very privacy-oriented people sometimes don't know about Urbit is that while for a variety of technical reasons, if we're talking about getting, your parents, your siblings onto the peer-to-peer ecology, Urbit is the right way to do that, but it's going to be easier for them to use cloud hosting. However, if you are a cypherpunk and you have very high privacy needs, there are Urbit-specific boxes that are available. Native Planet sells them, I think, for $500, which it's a little steep if you don't care about privacy, but right now it's the donut hole between people who think privacy is 100% invaluable and are willing to pay a little bit extra for it, and the people who, at the current time, they would have to go with cloud hosting, but they would prefer in the future to have a more private solution. That's the donut hole that the Urbit tech is working to close.
yeah, there's really multiple ways you can host your own Urbit, and it's really exciting to see the ecosystem pop up around that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that there is this hosted solution because, Black Sky, the organization that I'm a part of, we're actually starting to use Landscape itself for our own community, and because there truly aren't that many communication tools out there right now that have the user experience that we're looking for, and also it's helpful just to start using it without going through setting up all the self-hosting. Just sort of like, hey, is this for me? So I think it makes a lot of sense from the perspective of how to bring new people into the ecosystem and try it out, and then they might be like, okay, I want to go out of my way and just manage all this infrastructure myself. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's also really important for where we're at as an Urbit community, right? We actually have a substantial amount of developers, and so it's really important that we bring on other communities, other individuals, and we increase that adoption so that we can kind of continue to have this beautiful developer ecosystem that we do have.
Cool. Do you want a question from the audience, or yeah? I think we might have time for maybe one or two if people have any. Does anyone want to ask a question? I can come down with a mic. Otherwise, no one? Maybe come up here, actually. Yeah.
What kind of communities or what kind of other perspectives and communities are you looking for to join Urbit community?
That's a great question. I mean, really all types of communities. We're seeing it used a lot by teams, right? That was the first use case for Talon Corporation itself. We're seeing it with other communities like Black Sky or like Autonomous Ecologies. We're also seeing it, for example, with a lot of creators or creator communities, right? They don't own their tools, they don't own their relationship with their audience, and so they're looking for a different place to be able to organize and actually own their content. So we're actually seeing a huge range. People are having classes online. Yeah, I don't know. You probably have some other.
Sure. In terms of culture, I think that there are a lot of very idealistic and sort of privacy, autonomy, ideological people on Urbit, and we want more people like that in order to keep those principles alive. I think that those are going to continue to be the core strength of the Urbit community going forward many years into the future. But if you have a group that calls itself a DAO, but it's really a Telegram group chat, come talk to me. We can get that onto a peer-to-peer Telegram parody mobile app, same chat performance as Telegram, all peer-to-peer, and integrated with voting contracts in the same mobile app. We can get that for you as soon as we can figure out how many peer-to-peer nodes you need hosted for your members.
Yeah, I do just want to reiterate. I think Urbit's for everyone, right? So while early on we're going to have early adopters who are really interested in things like privacy and autonomy, I'm really excited for the day when people actually, like you started with, just don't know what Urbit is, right? They're more interested in the different applications and they're onboarded through that or through their community or their family.
Cool. So I think we're about at time when it comes to this panel. But I wanted to say, we did send the link to get onboarded onto Landscape a few days ago in email as well. So if you look out for that and you want to even try doing it in the next few hours, we did put some of the panel questions in there as well too. And if you add some thoughts about the Zero Knowledge People panel, it's possible you might be able to even leverage some of your insights asynchronously. So is there anything else final comments you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just going to say, go ahead and invite me too if you need help getting on Landscape.
Cool. All right. Thank
you.